And now time for The Viewing Room with Adam and Ethan.
Welcome to The Viewing Room, where we talk about films new and old, local and global. Today we're going to be talking about Welcome to Kittytown, which premiered for second time Friday, September 13th. So, last night for us
Friday
recording
the 13th.
this. Yeah, I know, pretty cool.
That was a risky day to choose, but it worked, I think.
Yeah, well, I texted Doug when I heard his film was screening, and I heard about that. Speaking of Doug, I know him well. He's a good friend of mine and a mentor in the film industry. He's taught me a lot about movie making, especially through the lens of this film and hearing his thoughts on it. So we actually sat down and had a chance to interview Doug and talk with him. So let's roll that now. We're here with Doug Luciuk, the director of Welcome to Kittytown, and we're going to be asking him some questions today. How are you doing, Doug?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you to everybody here for having me for this interview. I'm really happy to see this place. It's amazing, and to be here with you fine folks. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that you're happy, and this Kittytown T-shirt, I know we were just talking about it, is fantastic.
Looks great on you.
Where can people find them right now?
Yeah,
Well,
I need to know that. I'm the one left out here.
I had I stupidly dug up this box. I'm like, well, right before the screening, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna get these posters and just give them away and try and sell a few and get rid of everything. And then I realized I had another box that had some T-shirts in it and more posters. And I'm like, oh shit, it's okay for me to swear.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, because I swear a lot. And then I found this box and I had these T-shirts. I'm like, holy shit, I should have brought these. Probably would have been a good idea before the screening, but now I get to give you one. And there was only like 2 really small ones left. So, but I'm going to make more. So my plan this week is to order more. I might do the vertical poster.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
the
That's a
next
good
one.
idea.
Yeah.
and you should make some bad guy, like Todd Lewis shirts.
Oh, that would be
awesome.
great,
I think
too.
those are good. Or
Yeah.
Sam shirts, I
Like a
guess.
good,
Yeah.
good silhouette kind of or something.
Yeah, there's a couple other ideas for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just not very good in the Photoshop machine there, but yeah, there's some ideas, and maybe get that the new ham shirts done.
Yeah,
and
that would
stuff,
be perfect.
Yeah.
We did talk about on our show last week, maybe about the driver's license photos instead of showing a bunch of dead bodies. Could you talk about the process of that? Because we were kind of looking at it as like a really awesome, lower budget way of showing that there's a bunch of dead people.
Right.
Was that the intention?
Yeah, absolutely. When you have when you have to make a movie on a low budget, you have to find ways of even horrors. Horrors tend to be sort of the movies you can make, the genre you can make in a fairly cheap fashion. But even for the budget I had, we had to cut back things and let the audience sort of, when he peeks in and sees the bodies there. In the original script, we had bodies and all this stuff, but you can't do that. You have to use sound of flies and VFX and just find little ways of showing things, of not showing things, but having things insinuated. And yeah, the license plates were one of those things, but the license plates ended up being a bit of a pain in the ass too, because, and this is something I didn't know, but you shouldn't use last names in your movie because then you need to get it cleared. And so I had to this was all stuff after the movie was shot, years after, when I was trying to get my insurance for it, the E&O insurance, errors and omissions insurance, which I'll just tell people if they don't know, it's an insurance package, their policy that protects your movie from potential liability issues, so that it'll kick in and cover the expenses if someone tries to sue you, like if someone had the same name from North Dakota, and said, hey, that's me, you can't do that, I'm going to sue you, that, insurance policy kicks in, right? So that's what movies have. They have these policies, these protections in place. So yeah, it ended up being that those license plates, we had to blur names, blur the last name and stuff like that, and pull out the last names because they were in the original script. So we had to pull out names or severely blur a name in one situation. Just to make that all happen. But yeah, the license plates were more VFX shots to remove stuff. So they're kind of you don't know what you don't know when you're making your movie, right? And you learn all these things. I learned so many things the hard way that, it would be a huge giant list of things I learned the hard way making this movie. And we've talked about some of those before, right? So
We've had conversations about the last name thing, and that was so fascinating to me because I didn't know that was a thing, really, right? And looking at those ID photos and stuff, I was saying to Adam last week that, like, yeah, I think that is almost a genius way of showing this thing. And then you have the running gag of, like, the joke and like the human food stuff, right? Like,
yeah.
I forget all the steak Diane, things
Yeah.
like that.
Ginger beef.
Yeah, exactly.
The stew and all the
Yeah. And
Beef
that's
stew,
that's
yeah.
brilliant, and it has some purpose too, because at the end of the movie we find out that, you know, what's her name again? I forgot her name. Charlotte. Yes. I was gonna say Bernadette for some reason.
Yeah.
But Charlotte, those were her friends, right? And
Yeah.
So that was cool, and it has a nice tie back.
Yeah, they went for a scavenging mission, her friends, and they met Sam.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Now, going back to maybe the start, why don't you tell us a bit about the origin of Kittytown, how it kind of came to be, and how it moved forward?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I'd worked with Robert Bryn Mann, I call him Bryn, and Darren Zimmer. They were the, actors and writers that I'd worked with in a previous project. And when that thing wrapped up, I was doing audio on that project, and I was doing audio. I've always kind of done audio previously, worked on some sets and worked on some short films and a couple features. And I decided that I wanted to tell a story. Since high school, I've always wanted to make a movie. And I decided, maybe this is my time now in my life where I'm going to try and make my own movie and direct it and tell a story. And I just would sit in my, out in my backyard and, smoke a joint and drink some beer and think of how, what are the things I love in movies. And I'm a huge fan of the post-apocalyptic subgenre. And I felt like, hey, could we make something kind of funny, a comedy in the apocalypse? There's Shaun of the Dead type style. There's movies that do it, and kind of try and take some of those sort of ideas and make our own version with Darren and Robert Bryn Mann and see if we can take these two funny guys and do something funny in there and tell a story. And that's kind of where it started. So it was around August of 2018 when we had a meeting in the office, and I said, you guys, I want to make this kind of movie. And they were writers, and they wanted to get a feature off the ground. And they said, okay, we'll throw you some pitches and let's see what happens. So they sent me, I think, 3 or 4 pitches with under that sort of apocalyptic kind of comedy idea. And I thought this one was doable for the low budget that I knew that we would, I knew it was going to be a super micro budget movie. And so it ended up going with that idea of a road movie, post-apocalyptic road movie. And it started from there.
Nice. Did you think it would take as long as it did to kind of make it
I'd
come
say that's
together?
a long time. 6 years, that's pretty...
It's a long time, yeah. It was 6 years kind of in total. No, I don't recommend anyone do that. Try and do it in a shorter period of time. But yeah, it was, it's not crazy. I think even in Hollywood, directors are stuck with movies for a good 3-4 years sometimes, and, actors can go right to another project, no problem. But for the director and some of the producers, they got to stay in there and keep going. So like I said, I literally just got wrapped when we were talking at the screening there. I literally just got wrapped from this movie last week, so it's kind of just I've just been kind of enjoying this time I've had on my hands now, and I'm not sitting in this in this edit suite in my underwear trying to will this stupid little thing to existence,
I bet that hot tub feels real nice now.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, it's been getting a lot of love from me now, so we're good friends again.
Good.
Yeah.
Could you maybe talk about the funding process?
Sure.
How you applied for funding and the avenues you went down, and what that whole process between telefilm and Creative Sask and such was
and
like.
also advice for other people who might want to try something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a micro budget grant program that Creative Saskatchewan. There wasn't much funding in the industry in 2018, right? The government wasn't on board and throwing some resources now at the industry like they are now, thankfully. So it was this little micro thing that you could a maximum of $50,000, but you have to come up with the other 50% with Creative Saskatchewan, right? That's a big thing with them. And so I was like, well, I can't get the full 50. I can't do $100,000 budget movie and supply $50,000. I could maybe afford $15,000 and throw it on a credit card or something like that. And that was sort of what my wife, Zoe, and I decided we could do. And Zoe Harris is the executive producer of the movie, my wife. And so we said, okay, let's do a grant for, it's sort of a $32,000 grant. $15,000 we have to supply via good friends at MasterCard. And the other 15,000 would be from Creative Saskatchewan. That was the pitch. So, that's what we did. So we did the grant process and got the grant. We got the grant in the spring of early in 2019. We found out we got the grant, and then the process just got going. So then at that point we're moving, and the money got spent. Like roughly about half of it went to the cast and crew, and the other half went to everything else, right? Feeding people and props, and everything costs money, of course. And Amazon, I used Amazon quite heavily to help get some of the things that we needed.
Hey, when we built this place.
We built this place on Amazon, right?
Amazon supported as well. Yeah, Amazon. Yeah, it's a thing.
Now, if only Gary had Amazon Prime.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so that was the starting process, and then and then we worked on the movie for another 2 years basically. In October 2022, I finally ran out of money. My wife and I, like the credit card. Funny thing about those credit cards, they want the money back and they want extra money for it.
That's ridiculous.
And it's an interesting concept, and so it was just getting to a point where okay, the movie's. It's not done yet. We need VFX to properly tell a story. That's thousands. We need our E&O insurance if we want to distribute it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to distribute it without it. That's $5,000. I need legal. You need the legal to get that E&O insurance. So they got to go through the whole movie, get your clearances, do all that stuff before you can even get your E&O insurance. So that's $5,000. And it's just I don't have that money anymore, and I just decided I'm going to try and screen at the Roxy. What it is what it is right now, and try and get some money back. And so I made, just being candid, I made a couple grand from that screening, and that was kind of it. And I'm like, I might as well try and get into a few film festivals and submit to some festivals now. And I kind of felt like this is it. This is kind of where it's going to go. I'll screen at a few festivals and kind of call it a day in the fall of 22. And so the first festival was Fog Fest in St. John's, which was awesome. And it was like, holy shit, I got into a festival. I can't believe it, right? Everyone gets your artist imposter syndrome. Like, fuck, is this real? Do I have to check it again and make sure? And it ended up into some festivals. So it was awesome. I couldn't actually afford at the time to go to any of them, unfortunately, because it was just we were in debt with the movie. But we did. We got into some festivals, and then at that point, that run kind of stopped. It was done, and it was kind of around December, January. I was kind of just feeling anxious and depressed because the movie has come this far, but it wasn't done, And I didn't know what else to do at this point. I'm not spending another $15,000 at this point. I mean, maybe down the road I can come up with it, but. So I was kind of depressed for a couple months into January this was, I guess, into 23 now. But then Jefferson Monio, a producer who's originally from Saskatoon, we knew each other in Vancouver. I lived out in Vancouver for about 8 years, and we played in bands and played some shows together in some greasy dive places in Vancouver. And we just connected again, and he was like, "Hey, are you still in Saskatoon? I'm coming." I think this was late January. He's like, "I'm coming in. Let's hang out for beer. I think we're gonna move back." And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." Went and had a couple drinks. I'm like, "Hey, I got this movie I made," and he's like, "No way, show it to me." And I showed the movie. I sent him the cut, and I just explained where it was sitting. It's kind of just in limbo. I was sitting in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with no rudder, and he's like, "Okay, I'll watch it." And he watched it, and next day he's like, "Dude, let's try and get this thing done." And I was like, okay, sure. Like, because Jeff does movies.
say
Jeff
so,
has done some bigger movies, right? And I mean, he goes to Cannes and he goes to TIFF and he gets out there and meets all the right people and stuff like that. And yeah, and then after that, we got in touch with Telefilm and saw the possibility of trying to get some post-production funding to finish it, and went through all that process. And thankfully, once again, it's that imposter syndrome. It's like really, are they going to allow, like, they're going to watch this poopy shitty little movie and give money? And I was just like shocked. And it's like, yeah, well, we asked for a certain, like, for the highest amount we could get. We got kind of half of that. And at that point, it was like, well, is it enough to really do it with, because you have to go through a lot of things to get that funding, right, from Telefilm, and rightly so. And then Creative Saskatchewan, Jeff contacted Creative Saskatchewan, and Creative Saskatchewan said, hey, we'll give you a bit more so you can finish it. And so it was like, sweet. And then we were just I was back in the edit suite again, and Jeff's wife and president of Prowler Pictures, I do believe, president of Prowler Pictures, Fabiola Carrazza, who's also a professional editor. She agreed to look at the cut and make it better, because I'm not really that great of an editor. So she tightened it all up and fixed some things and we're polishing turds at a point, but she went and polished the proverbial turd a little more and got to a point where we shaved 11 minutes off the cut and moved from there. Of course, it had to get redone with sound again, and this was the whole last year was just doing all this again. And then I had to change some things on the score, which was good because the score was kind of half done, which I did. And so I spent a lot of time moving little MIDI notes around in Pro Tools and trying to pretend like I was Hans Zimmer. And that was kind of it. We went through that whole thing. VFX came on board. And then you get into these dark times where you have to get more legal contract work stuff. You have to get your insurances done. You have to get your accounting done, like all that stuff where, there's a dream as a filmmaker to tell us the story and have fun and try and make people feel something. And then the reality of that producey kind of stuff combines, and I was kind of dealing with all three of those things. So I was kind of feeling like a kind of a worthless piece of shit when you have to deal with those. I call them soul-sucking things, but they're super important things, obviously, right?
For sure.
For making a movie, and I was lucky that there were good people that kind of walked me through all these processes and stuff like that. Because I'm an art brain, I'm an artist brain. I'm not a super producer brain, so all that sort of stuff is painful.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And if it makes you feel better, like we both thought it was a very polished turd.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
right,
good.
Right.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I know the producing stuff is, not as fun as
Soul-sucking, like
being
you said.
on set.
It's-
Yeah.
Now, that being said, we talk about, challenges and stuff that come with, doing stuff lower budget and how it forces you to be a little bit more creative and stuff.
Yeah.
How did that affect you as a director on set and your kind of process?
Well, the process for me, like the whole directing thing, I felt I never really got that experience. I was always producing from 6 months before we started shooting until now, but I mean, and really intently until the end of the production, and I paid people their final thing. Like there was always a distraction. I couldn't just sit there and work with the actors and the cinematographer and bang out scenes. We couldn't really rehearse. I couldn't even be there for some of the rehearsal stuff for a couple days that were happening a couple days before where we were just working with some of the, I couldn't even be there because I was busy trying to make sure that our catering was there. And so I didn't, it was my directing experience is sort of the one thing that I feel I lost. I didn't gain the experience of it that I was hoping to gain out of it. It was really just survival.
It's all such a blur. You're busy, and it's
Yeah.
a long shoot.
Yeah, I'm worried about what's the person at the location. Are they okay about something that's happening here? I have to go talk to them now, figure that out. Hold on, everybody. The movie's got, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Sure.
there was no one. I was that person on set, and I couldn't just focus on directing. So it was really, I was so exhausted I was exhausted before we even started shooting. I was exhausted from just trying to get everything prepped and ready to go. And, and for people who don't understand when you're trying to produce a movie, it's like no big deal, right? You just go and just set up there and go shoot your scenes or whatever. It's like setting up, it's like trying to arrange a marriage.
That's a good way of
It's
putting
like trying to arrange a marriage for 18 days.
With 18 people.
Yeah, it's a small wedding, but it's an 18-day wedding that would be, and we're gonna go to different locations and have different entertainment, and everything has to be arranged. That's what it's like when you think, okay, when I have to arrange my marriage, how stressful and tough that is. Times that by 18 to 20 days, and that's just on a micro level, right?
Rentals and locations and catering and
absolutely
all the things. Yeah.
Everything. You got to make sure it's all lined up and ready to go, right? In multiple locations, and then everyone's scheduled and there and at the right times, and it's that's the closest sort of analogy I think I can get to for people that don't understand what it's like to make a movie and why it's exhausting, right? Yeah. Why it's so exhausting.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect way, a kind of analogy. I've never thought of it like that, but it makes total sense when you say it. After the fact, we'll talk about, because I know we're running out of time here. What was your favorite part of the film? Because I know on set it was crazy for you, lots of moving parts, but afterwards, after the edit's done, seeing it for a final time, what do you think is your favorite part of the film? Favorite scene,
like
favorite
the actual
moment?
There's about 3 or 4 scenes that I love. I think you could put that on Netflix. And then there's some scenes that I bombed. I fucked up on them. But the one of the scenes I love, and I kind of had to fight a little bit to keep it, was when Darren just is walking. The character Vern is just walking. He just finished talking to his friend Anna, who's dead. And he's talking to a dead person now, and he's losing his mind basically, and he's having a nervous breakdown. And he visits his dead friend and realizes, okay, we gotta, I'm losing my mind, and he has this nervous breakdown right after. And it's just a simple scene of just him walking. I love that scene. I also love the fire scene where the 2 characters are talking about that. It was. I thought it was just a really well acted scene by Darren and Bryn and
the cinematography on that one. I really liked like shooting with the fire and everything in that light.
Yeah.
And it was. I thought it looked really good. Visually.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I really like that scene too. And I mean, there's a number of scenes I really enjoy in the movie, but I like the hand when he hands the toilet paper off. Scene
lasted as
2-ply. Yeah. So just you understand, Ted is now understanding what's going to happen to Vern and his friend and stuff like that, and I thought that was a nice scene and it worked out really well.
Yeah. And so, actually, question: so does Vern have sludge butt? Is that what's being implied? He has sludge butt?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because
we were trying about that. We were trying to figure it out.
Obviously he's sick.
The explosive diarrhea of 20.
Well,
but like
I
he
was
says,
like, maybe
at
that's
one
just
point,
a side effect of eating so much ham.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing that could be.
Because at one
pursued,
point, Ted was like, is this sludge butt or whatever? And he's like, no, it isn't. Like he said it wasn't, but he's denying.
He's denying it isn't, but he's trying to protect Ted from.
Okay.
I think we thought it was sludge butt. But just wasn't sure.
Wasn't
100%.
confirmed.
Yeah, because it kind of makes his sacrifice good too, because he's like, he knows he's dying.
Yeah.
Anyways, right? And so
he just wants to get. He's starting to become his friend, and just wants to get him to this ideal haven, and probably not be there himself or die there. Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it, I guess. And how many days exactly was the Kittytown shoot again?
17 or 18. I should know this. It's one of the two. 17 or 18 days. I think 17.
That's impressive, really. And I mean, a 90-minute film on 20 or 3 weeks, like that's impressive.
Yeah. You have to, right? It's
you do
so much money,
right?
But yeah.
Do you have?
One thing I was gonna ask you about. So, like, usually your actors they come in like after scripts written and everything's produced, but having your 2 lead actors as the ones who wrote it, like I feel like that would change your role as a director. You're not necessarily having to instruct them as much about the character or like tweak their character acting as much because like they're the ones that created the characters, so they kind of have the vision. Like, so did that make it easier, or was that harder, or is it like?
I have nothing to base it off really, because I've only directed one movie. But I was not. I had no intention of stepping on. As we were doing the script and working on the lines and stuff, they were acting it out in character and stuff.
Right,
so
yeah.
I had a sense of what it was going to be, and I liked it
Yeah.
at that point. And if there was some tweaks that needed to be changed, we would change it kind of there. But I would never have done that. The one interesting thing is they knew the story so well that there was this one moment where Darren's like, we have to film this scene. We cut a scene out, and I said, well, we don't have time. I had to make a hard decision and say we just don't have time to do it. So Darren and I had to have a little conversation about why I can't shoot this scene. I'd love to, but we have to tell the story. This isn't going to help us tell the story. And so Darren and I had a good conversation one day. But they're all just beautiful people to work with, and he realized right away, and it's like, that's part of making movies, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and that's totally fair.
Yeah.
One last thing. What's next for you? What's your next project? I know you just finished this one, so you're probably like, I need a break. But like, what's next? What do you got coming up?
I don't know yet. I've sort of a video game, Unreal Engine sort of calls to me. I kind of want to. Calls to me, and maybe making when you make a game, there's a lot less logistics.
Right.
So I'm sort of leaning a little bit that way, but we do have a sequel idea, and it is an awesome idea. Like when I tell people who've seen it and who I'm close to, when I tell them in 2 sentences what the story is, there's always a big shit-eating grin on their face, like, or smile. They love it. It's a funny idea. It's crazy. There would need to be a major sludge butt budget, like, because I could never show sludge butt, but this would be a complete opposite.
Well, this
disaster.
is one thing that we talked about
Yeah.
was how, like, we felt like it was the perfect ending. Like it was wrapped up, and it's like it doesn't need a sequel, but like if you got a sequel, it would work. But you don't need a sequel. Like we thought it wrapped up quite nicely.
That's good to hear. Yeah, because that's what we tried to do. But we've always had the intention that there is more story to tell, and we do have the outline ready to go. But it's a huge process, and I don't know if everyone's wants to be on board. If everyone's on board 100%, and I feel like I'm on board 100%, in the next couple weeks, maybe, or 3 weeks, maybe we can approach the subject. But it's just I don't know. I don't know if I want to go through that journey again. Even though I think it would be a fucking awesome movie and really entertaining.
I'd go watch another.
Can we
Kittytown.
see Darren's return? Do you think you think Vern could rise from the ashes?
Maybe.
Is that something? I don't know. Maybe. I talked to the cast and crew at the premiere, and I was like, I don't know. I see that we can make something happen, and truthfully, it's selfish for me because the main reason I want it is because I already could imagine the poster and what the title would be. It'd be Welcome to Kittytown, right? Like this would be 2 right here.
It's actually tentatively titled Return to Kittytown.
Would it be 2 though in the middle? Because I think that would be
genius.
Now. Yeah,
it is now.
I think that'd be genius.
It is now, my friend, for sure.
Yeah,
I love that.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else on your mind that you want to maybe talk about, or
I don't think so. I think it's just I'm just, like I said, I'm just processing now.
Yeah.
Having
Is
this
there
kinda
anywhere
done,
that
so.
anybody can find Kittytown to watch it themselves, or is it going to
Yeah.
be distributed, or where can they get more information?
So the plan, as I see it, is I'd like to play in Regina. I'd like to screen it in there as soon as possible. I'm just kind of reaching out to some possible vendors to see if it's possible. Ideally in this fall, I'd love to play Regina. Humboldt has reached out; they want to screen it there, so maybe we can screen it in
great.
Humboldt too.
I'll go watch it again.
Yeah, and beyond that, who knows? We're talking to some distributors, but it could end up maybe on something like Indie Rights or Film Hub, inevitably, which will then be able to, hopefully get out to Tubi and Amazon Prime and Apple and stuff like that. And people can just watch it early in the new year. Yeah. And a couple more film festivals. We're actually playing in Fredericton. We're playing actually in a drive-in in Louisville, the Drive-In of Terror.
Yes, I saw the
in
post
Louisville,
about it, yeah.
which is so awesome. And apparently there's potentially an award thing for our movie. We're playing in Fredericton. We're one of 2 features in Fredericton coming up this fall, and then hopefully another festival or 2 as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
I know we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming in today. We've really appreciated this.
I really
conversation.
appreciate it. It's so much fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks a ton, and we'll keep you guys updated on any possible screenings or showtimes, and if it comes to streaming services on our Patreon. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Welcome to Kittytown was shot with a budget of $35,000 by the end of it, which is crazy for a full-length feature.
That is 90-minute feature. That's
Yeah, like ultra low budget. And it's awesome when you can pull off something like this on tight
Yeah.
squeeze. Obviously, Telefilm and Creative Saskatchewan came in clutch, and
yes.
it's a good one.
How many crew did they say worked on this? Was it 27 people? I think.
I'm
think
not sure the
I
exact
think
number, but
when he got up and he introduced it last night, he said it was 26 of the 27 people were from Saskatchewan,
wow.
which is so I guess it's shot in Saskatchewan. It's a Saskatchewan film. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and we're gonna talk later about this, but like it really highlights the Saskatchewan film community, and
Yeah.
we'll touch on that. But this film stars Robert Bryn Mann, who plays Ted,
Yes.
Todd Lewis, who plays Sam, Darren Zimmer, who plays Vern, and Bernadette Mullen, who
Yes.
plays
And
the girl.
and Bryn Mann also was a writer on it
Yeah,
as well, right?
Bryn and Darren wrote this
Yes.
film together, and kind of presented a few different options to Doug Luciuk, the director, and Doug picked one of the ones that they kind of pitched, and then they developed a script through there, and they both kind of wrote their own characters in a way, and brought in some aspects from their own lives and stuff, and how maybe other people see them, and they kind of curated a script, and then it went into production, and Doug tells awesome stories about the days of production here, but it's his first time ever directing a film, right? And so he was telling me up to 3 days beforehand he's making overheads and stuff and breakdowns because he doesn't know what to do and doesn't have time to storyboard everything, right? And so it just shows how hard you have to work to make a successful film, and how much planning really goes into it. It's hard with a short film for sure, which is where we have our experience, right?
Yes.
But when you really start to delve into the full-length features, just the scope of it in itself is insane. And
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, I think about, like, when I'm writing a short film and it's like, I have, these grand visions or whatever, and I get writing and it's like after 5 pages, I'm like, oh my God, I'm burned out here. When you think about, I mean, the script for Kittytown, there was probably 90 pages. I mean, that's the general rule, a minute per page. Like a 90-page script, like that's insane, the amount of work. And then you think about the rewrites, and then like it's insane. And that's just the first part of it. That doesn't even include all of the production, and then actually shooting it, and nobody's making gobs of money on this at all, right? So it's like it's a work of passion, to them find time, work around day jobs and whatnot. It's a work of passion.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that kind of shines through a lot, especially when you watch kind of local films, indie films, especially low budget ones, is because you talk about this a lot, but when you have less money, it forces you to be more creative. In a sense. You can be super creative with all the money in the world, right? But when you're very much limited on what you can spend and what you can do, you find a lot of creative ways to create an environment of people, like to have an avenue of some sort of creativity, right? It's challenging. It's challenging for the art department. It's challenging for the camera crew, and it can be challenging for the cast, right? But you curate it in a way that kind of, it gives you some creative flow, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's easier to, maybe some people would say, to make a film with $5 million and a large crew, but there is a lot to be said about the smaller crew that's maybe a little bit more tight knit, works better together, and is really, really trying hard to use their brains to, how can we take this amount of money, stretch it out across like the board, and make shit happen, right?
Well, I think it's also like, I mean, like, you hear the stories of like, your NBA players, that, they get their first paycheck for $1 million and it's like in 2 years they're broke because they just have so much that they just go out and they make all the mistakes. Whereas when you're on a small budget, you can't afford to make those mistakes. Like, if somebody came to me and said, here's $5 million, go make a movie, I don't know what I would do with that. Like, I honestly have no idea what I would do with that amount of money to make a film, because like I'm not used to it. And so yeah, like it shows, like you say, creativity. Like when you have that money, you can afford to make mistakes. When you have the smaller amount, you can't make the mistakes, and so you have to be much more thinking ahead and, like you say, creative.
Yeah, and it might even be easier to manage too, in a way. Like if I had $5 million, I might make my main character drive a Lamborghini. But then I realized I just spent $230,000 getting a Lamborghini for my main character, and now I am like, okay, shoot. Now I could have had him drive a mint condition 1999 GMC Jimmy, and I could have saved so much money. And that's my car for those of you wondering.
Mint condition.
Yeah.
The mirrors are all attached.
So we'll read a synopsis and then we'll get into
Yes.
some of the meat and potatoes here. Welcome to Kittytown. A post-apocalyptic survivor and his unlikely ally journey through a barren, disease-ridden wasteland, searching for a safe haven, aka Kittytown. Welcome to Kittytown. Now,
Yes.
I've always talked to Doug, and if there was a sequel, I always thought that it could be called Welcome to Kittytown, but it would be Welcome
The
to
number 2
Kittytown.
Kittytown. Yeah.
Whatever. I that's something I've always thought about, and that's the only reason I'm like in my mind right now that I think it absolutely needs a sequel because of how awesome the poster would look if it was a sequel.
What would
But
you do
whatever.
in a sequel though? Like to me, they wrapped it up nicely. Like,
I think it was wrapped up nicely, but I mean, you could obviously continue the journey of Ted and
Charlotte.
yeah,
I don't know if it would flow though. That's like this is what we've talked about this a few times now over the course of this is like especially with the Despicable Me movies and like Wayne's World. It's like
Yeah.
do we really need a sequel or is this just here to make money? And I feel like this is a perfect example of they wrapped this story up nicely. I don't think a sequel would do anybody any justice.
Well, truthfully, I don't think in its core, you make a good point there. I don't think this film was designed to make money.
No, it wasn't at all. No.
It's a passion project.
Yeah.
And it was, had money being kind of put into it. But yeah, like it really is a love letter
Yeah.
to the film community that we have here. And it, truthfully, like, they could expand on the story. Like maybe like, okay, so Ted's trying to find a cure for the miracle GMO, whatever.
Sludge butt.
Sludge butt, right? And maybe it does something like that. Maybe Sam gets resurrected again or something like that, right?
Yeah. That was one thing I will say kind of confused me a little bit
Yeah.
was the resurrection of Sam.
Like almost zombified.
Yeah, the
'cause of,
zombified. Like, it was
the
a nice
GMO.
touch and the classic hand out of the dirt shot and it was cool.
One of the best shots.
It
in
was
the whole
I know,
film,
right?
too,
Like
the
it was
shadow.
awesome.
Yeah.
But I just felt like it didn't quite make sense. And I get it. It's a zombie movie. It doesn't make sense, but I felt like it could have made more sense.
You know what? Like
Like it felt very
Yeah.
random and out of place to me anyway. Like, and I knew about the film for a couple years, but I didn't know anything about it other than that it was a post-apocalyptic feature. That's all I knew about it. And so it wasn't like that part was unexpected to me because typically post-apocalyptic, stories, movies or books, like they follow a natural progression from where we are today or the modern day to where they are there, and they outline whatever catastrophic event it was that created the apocalypse, and then, but it still follows that, like, it's not sci-fi or fantasy, right? Like it has that believable element to it, whereas like with this zombie thing, like it was cool, like I said, it was awesome, and it can work, but I just felt like it was out of place, and they needed to expand on it and explain it more to make it make more sense.
yeah. Truthfully, maybe what it comes down to is a budget thing. I mean,
That's
we could
entirely
sit down
possible.
with Brain Man and talk
Yes.
about it, but I think when we talk about like apocalyptic movies, or maybe we're talking about like the Book of Eli or The
Mhm.
Road or even Mad Max, stuff like that, right? You almost have one big bad guy that follows the character through the whole story, almost, it seems like, or like a common thing that's holding them back, and then you have little groups of survivors or other people that attack and try and slow down the characters' your journey to them. And I think Sam's one of those characters that happen and to slow them down on the way. But truthfully, I don't know if it had the potential for runtime or budget even to bring in another person to make us feel like super strong, because they did set up Sam a bit at the start, right? With
Mhm.
I pretty much I kind of gathered he was a cannibal the first like a little gray meat shot.
Yes,
they did with
yeah,
putting
yeah,
his mouth. Like,
They did
like,
that very nicely.
yeah, I like it, it makes sense, right? And um we set him up as a cannibal, and he goes through and whatever, and then he gets resurrected. And again, I'm not super sure. Like, I think it would have made more sense if we maybe had like a line of dialogue somewhere in a
Yeah.
voiceover saying like, maybe like when you get sludge butt or something, like it turns you
Yeah.
into like
In that opening voiceover where
Parasite.
he explains, it's not quite the opening, but near the opening where he explains what happened,
Yeah.
and explains that it's so much. Yeah, all you need is an extra line in there that just gives the viewers a clue as to why that happened.
Yeah, and one thing I think, like, think of The Last of Us. Fantastic TV show, adapted from the game. In the movie, at least, they have this scientist come on at the start, right? And he's like explaining how this fungi gets into your brain and it keeps you alive, but like just the parts of you that are necessary to
Yeah.
essentially like keep breathing, right? And then yes, you're gone. The host is gone essentially, and it's just like a heart beating, right? I think that's something that might have played into this miracle GMO that's in the ground that kills the crops and stuff like that. It could be something like that, a parasite or something, right? And so maybe that explains it just good enough for us, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
we're obviously
It doesn't need to be anything, and it doesn't need to be super obvious.
Right.
Just needs a little clue, little breadcrumb to give us a little more information.
Right. And truthfully, I think ideally what might have been just a better option, even though it set up a lot of funny moments, was instead of like burying Sam, maybe we just leave Sam there, and then it's kind of like it makes sense that they flee instead of like burying him and having a funeral, and then we
A funeral, we
Vern
might add.
tells Ted that he's not
Yeah.
he's not a good person. But let's maybe do a plot synopsis, and then we
Sure.
can
Yeah, for
revisit
sure.
this. So we come in and we see some shots of dirt and landscape and stuff.
Yes.
Lots of dirt shots where we
Yes.
like funnel through, and cool little VFX are done
Yeah.
by Myriad Creatives there and
Yeah.
their division. And I don't know. So we meet Vern. He's a
Mhm.
survivor. He's not quite happy with the world.
Yeah.
In fact, he almost kills himself. We see him put a gun to his mouth.
I like the way they set the tone of the movie, though, because those
Oh.
very first opening shots, it's like, oh, this is serious, and you knew it was post-apocalyptic going into it. Or,
Yeah.
You knew it's serious, and they're really close-ups, and there's the sign and the town burning, and then, oh, fuck that! Like that was a great opening
Yeah.
to set up like the tone of the movie, because like I said, normally when you think post-apocalyptic, they're usually pretty serious, right?
Yeah.
But like this was post-apocalyptic kind of comedy.
Yeah.
And so that set the tone very well, that opening.
Yeah,
That
no,
opening
for sure.
sequence.
So we learned that Vern is feeling suicidal. He's alone.
Yeah.
And so he goes and visits. I don't know if it was his wife or like a love interest.
Yeah,
or
we
someone
don't really know.
who saved his life after he got stabbed. Essentially, is kind of how it explains. And
Yeah.
Anna's kind of dead on the bridge.
Yeah.
Her name's Anna.
We learned that later. We
Uh,
don't know that quite then, but yeah.
Yeah, and so he kind of visits her resting place and stuff, and he kind of has this moment reflecting, and he goes back to his tent again, and he's pretty lonely. He doesn't. There's not a lot of people out here anymore. You know what I mean? It's pretty barren.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to his tent, and cans are flying out, and he hears a noise, right? And so
Yeah.
he realizes that there's someone in his tent going through
Yeah.
his food. So he opens fire, and out pops
Ted.
Ted, played by Rin Man,
Yes.
and hilarious, by the way.
Yeah, he was great at that character. He really nailed it. It was
Yeah.
it was phenomenal.
Well, when I was in school, actually, at Reyes, we actually edited that scene as
Oh,
part of
really?
a project, our first editing
Really?
project. And so, I could even play my version of it or something or whatever. But we each edited a version of that scene and how we thought maybe the speed should go and the pacing and how it would be edited. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of good lines in there that I know you didn't see in the
I
film,
didn't
but,
see him, yeah.
but I've heard and
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
them, and like there's one line where they're about to leave there, and he goes, "You like ham?" That was the final version, but
Yeah.
I have that in my version.
Yeah.
He's hilarious, man, and it was quite awesome. Good stories on
Yeah.
there. But Ted has kind of been stealing Vern's food. He says
Yes.
the places was picked over before he got there, and so he figured he was dead.
Yeah.
That's not the case. Vern's not happy because that was his winter supply of food.
Yep.
And so Ted takes him to his little camp where.
Well, Vern makes him.
Well, yeah. So
Yeah.
they can exchange food and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they get there. Vern sees Hamsh and basically decides to have some food. And he falls asleep because the ham is so delicious.
Yep.
It's like canned ham, essentially. And then he wakes up to Ted outside, which is it's interesting part to me because he's setting up this thing of don't trust anyone, no one to be trusted, right? And so he sees this guy stealing all his food. He goes to his house, he eats his food, and then he just falls asleep.
Yeah, that was a little odd. It was a little weird. I agree, but it was good. Like it was cool, but yeah, I agree. It was a little odd.
But it does set up the next part of the film where we realize that Ted is talking to someone on the radio from Kittytown, and they're
Yes.
telling Ted that essentially, Kittytown is running water, food, there's generators, it's got people,
Medicine.
and they're wanting medicine, and they're gonna build a strong community
Yes.
of people. So they're like, okay, go to Kittytown, but Vern doesn't want to. It's not for Vern. He can't really trust anyone. He doesn't want to go, and so he heads away. Bye. And Ted gets ready to leave to go to Kittytown. And then from there, my mind's getting foggy. Why does Vern go back again?
I really don't know. Like
I can't remember.
It was if I remember correctly, they kind of showed like more shots of him just like wandering around like his campsite. He did the thing again with the dirt and like, oh, nothing's gonna grow and I don't have anything here. And I think it was probably a like, well, fuck this. What's the worst that could happen? We're gonna.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a change of heart. He's been alone for so long.
Yeah.
Now he has someone he can finally trust. They're not buddies. They're not. They can't really.
They're not
trust him,
buddies. We're not buddies.
But
Okay, buddy.
there's. I think he's tired of being alone. Obviously,
Yeah.
he almost killed himself just then and there, and so now
Yep.
he needs. He's gonna go on a bit of an adventure, and the worst thing that happens is he ends up dead. And you know what? He probably would have done that himself.
Probably would have done
if
that
he did
anyway.
that, for a long period of time, right? So he goes on an adventure with Vern, and they learn a bit about each other. We learn.
Ted. Vern goes on the adventure with Ted.
Yes, sorry. I want to talk about the cannibal thing. I'm actually gonna write this down because I thought of a hilarious name for Vern.
Oh God.
Um,
Remember what happened last time you gave what you thought were hilarious names with Forrest Gump?
that got cut out of that episode, right?
No, it didn't.
Oh, okay.
As I told you in the episode, this is running unedited.
I'm gonna have to delete that. Okay. So moving forward, we kind of learned that Ted's daughter was killed and his wife was killed, or was it his daughter?
Yeah, it was
Son?
it was
Son?
daughter. It was daughter and wife and daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so they kind of died when the everything kind of collapsed, and the miracle GMO was spread everywhere, and he doesn't really have anyone left either. And I think he's in a very similar situation to Vern, where they're both kind of alone. But they've kind of taken polar opposite sides of
Yes.
how they handled it, right? Ted is very out there and loud and very trusting of everyone, and he still sees life as this, he still sees the beauty in life, right? And Vern's a little bit more, dark. He's weathered, and maybe he's a little softer on the inside, but he's a hard shell outside, right? And he doesn't want to trust people. He doesn't want to necessarily be surrounded by a ton of people because he's survived just fine on his own. And if he gets attached to the same people again, like he did with Anna, it's not going to end up the same way, right? Or if it does end up the same way,
Yeah.
So anyways, they find a little homestead, belonging to Sam. Sam's a very nice guy.
Yeah, very much like Ted in a way.
So it seems.
Yeah.
We get a lot of shots of Sam eating meat, cooked gray meat, and he's also listening to the Kittytown radio, so he knows that two people are close by, right? And so they, so he knows there's people kind of coming towards him, right? And so Ted and Vern wake up in the morning, kind of getting ready to go, and Vern realizes his rifle's gone, and that's because Ted decided in the middle of the night that, Vern, you got to be more trusting of people, right? And so
It was
he
rifle
took
in the
his
river.
rifle and then threw it in the river. Whoops. So Ted runs off to the homestead, and they meet Sam, played by Todd Lewis. And Todd, man, is a massive
He is
guy.
huge.
Um,
Seeing him in the theater there, like I was like, holy crap, like,
Yeah.
that guy's huge. And then seeing him on screen, it's like, holy, like,
yeah. Well, so my dad played sports with him in high
Yeah.
school,
Oh,
right?
God.
And our Layla Bautista, a friend of mine, I had to ask my dad, like, oh man, what was it like playing like football with him? And my dad was like, it was terrifying.
Yeah, it would be, like, especially if you were on opposite sides of the ball, like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And I think that's hilarious. And
Yeah.
and I had a good chance to meet Todd last night and
Yeah.
talk with him for a while, and he's just the most sweet guy. He's so gentle, and he gave me a hug, and it just, I don't know, he was just such a
Yeah.
great dude, and he was so genuine, and it was so nice meeting him that, like, I couldn't believe it, and
Yeah.
he's nothing like his character
Yeah.
at all.
Well, that's a sign of good actor when they're nothing like their character. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And when you use stuff like your stature and stuff to kind of portray a certain role, but still subvert expectations,
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious, right? And it works in this movie too, right? Like, you have Ted and Vern, who are talking about how they're going to starve to death in the winter, and they're both big dudes, right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't look like they're hungry, right?
Yeah.
But I think that works. And so Sam, again, massive dude. He looks terrifying, but he kind of plays it more like the gentle giant,
Mhm.
and then he's really not, right? And so he's
Yeah.
kind of like a little bit of a double entendre there,
Yeah.
if you will.
Wow, fancy.
So Ted and Vern head inside the house, and they get a bedroom, and Sam thinks they're together. Because
That's
they're
funny.
going to share a bedroom out of safety, for safety reasons, of
For
course,
safety.
right?
Safety.
Yeah, I know. It was such a good dinner. They started clapping in the room after.
Yeah.
They're cheering. So yeah, well, Sam cooks some dinner.
He's got alcohol too,
And
which is
alcohol.
awesome.
Nice alcohol.
I mean, can you
say it's
imagine?
awesome?
Well, like, I mean, if you probably haven't had a drink in years, if at this point, we don't really know what the timeline is from collapse to how long till we get to this point. Like, if you haven't had a drink in a while, I feel like that would be pretty cool. You show up at somebody's house and they make you a meal. They got a bunch of alcohol. I feel like that'd be pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I wasn't expecting that. I was like expecting you to be like, oh yeah, like, I didn't know that they had alcohol there, and then you're like,
How would I not know that? I did watch the movie.
No, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but you're just like so excited. You're so passionate about it. I like it.
What?
Okay, never mind. We're just
You're confusing me.
gonna, and we're not gonna cut that out because Adam hates editing.
No,
so-
I don't hate editing. I just I don't like to cut. I don't like it to have an edited vibe.
I like to have an edited vibe.
Well, too bad.
So I was gonna say, Sam. I'm getting all my. I have a sheet of names here, because making sure the character names are lining up and stuff like that. Obviously, it's interesting. I've never watched a movie where I've met all the cast.
Yeah, that is really cool.
So I'm trying to, and I've had a nice conversation with each of
Yeah.
them, right? And I'm trying to be like, okay, am I calling them Ted or am I calling them Robert Bryn Man? And they're like, what
Yeah.
am I doing? But
Character names.
yeah, so Sam cooks the boys dinner, and it's okay. Ted's eating it. It's good. He's having a great meal, right?
He's
Yeah. The meat's
Yeah.
a little chewy. It's a little tough, but Vern, he's a little skeptical. of this
yeah.
guy,
He just
so-
eats the potatoes.
So he eats the potatoes. He says he's a vegetarian, and then
Vegan.
Vegan.
Big difference.
They head off. And,
Just kidding. They're all the same.
They have their dinner. They hang out for a bit. Todd kind of wants them to stay up and
Drink with
him, but
Drink, yeah. Like I'll play up the excited now,
Yeah, maybe.
Alcohol, yeah.
Which is funny too, because if you've been living in solitary for so long, right? How much alcohol did people buy beforehand that you've had so much?
Could just raid the liquor stores. Society's broken down.
True.
Don't raid liquor stores. Don't try this at home, kids.
Wow. I don't know if we need a disclaimer for that. 'cause- yeah. Anyways, so they go to bed. Ted and Vern head to bed, and they won't stay up and drink for too long. And then in the middle of the night, Vern does some exploring. And he
Yes.
finds a shed with some body parts
Mm-hmm. And some recipes
and some recipes.
that are very cleverly labeled or named.
Yeah.
I thought that was a clever way of
Steak
insinuating.
Diana.
Yeah, steak Diana and like there was some kind of stew, but it was like
yeah.
the name stew, and I thought that was a very clever way because on a small budget like that, they probably don't have the the budget for like high end body props, right? Like like bunch of like dead bodies and hanging them, right? Like they showed one arm and that was about it for like gruesome body parts, right? So like making those like recipes, that's a really low budget way of doing it. I thought it was really creative.
And that's what I mean when it like forces you to be creative,
Right,
Because
yeah.
you could have showed like 3 bodies with
Yeah.
flies around them, like under tarps or something like that. But no, it makes it adds a new level of
Mhm.
creativity, I think. And
Yeah.
there's like driver's license of them, like
Yeah.
they have mac and cheese, as in like Mackenzie and cheese, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so they're there. And so Vern realizes, okay, they need to get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
And so he wakes up Ted and they run out, but Sam follows them, and Sam steals the bag of Ted and destroys the mug that his little girl had in like grade
Yeah.
1 or kindergarten, something like
Something
that.
like that, yeah. Put
And
her handprint on, and then yeah.
and Ted, who's been sweet and wholesome up to this point, goes feral.
Yeah.
And he tackles Sam and he beats him to death.
Yep.
Or so we think. And yeah, he just goes absolutely crazy. So in the morning, Vern and Ted bury Sam, and
Hold a funeral.
Ted has a little like eulogy for him and such, and he's talking about how up there, God, you're gonna get like a sweet angel coming through your doors, and it's gonna be great. And he was an upstanding dude, and we're gonna say a prayer. And then Vern's like, "You are a fucking idiot. He was a cannibal." and so finally Ted freaks out, loses his shit, and starts hitting things. And yeah, it was a very interesting little character like switch up there, right? Because up to a certain point, it's almost like Vern is being held back a bit by Ted and being a little more reserved, and then Ted goes just hog wild and has to be pulled back from pulled back by Vern. And yeah, I think that's a nice little like dynamic, right? And
Yep.
I think it shows how things can go from like 0 to 100
Yeah.
pretty freaking quick. I think that was realistic essentially. And it was like almost like a kingpin moment, you know what I mean, where he like just goes completely hog wild and just crushes it, right? So from there they continue on their journey, and eventually they reach Kittytown. We do realize though that we had a nice little shot of a hand coming on the ground, and Sam's still alive and he's coming after them, right? And he's got these nice green eyes.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so
do you think that was done practically? Like probably green contacts.
it was
eh?
VFX because I was in the room when it happened.
All right then.
Yeah.
That was very well done. I couldn't tell whether that was VFX or practical, and
Yeah. Well, I remember Reed, who was there last night, was with me, and he's a good buddy of mine. We were in Doug's office talking one day, and Doug was actually going through which kind of VFX he wanted to put over the eyes. He had a couple of different options and stuff that he was showing us, and so yeah, he was kind of figuring out how to do like some veins and glowing eyes and stuff like that. And
it looked really well done.
Yeah, it was really awesome, and so he spent a lot of time kind of working on that and kind of discussing which one he really wanted to go with. And so yeah, I can tell you with 100% certainty that it was done in post.
Neat. Yeah. Cool.
Because I was there. And so going through with the plot, they get to Kittytown finally, and they meet Charlotte, and
She introduces them to the others.
yeah, but something's a little bit off here, because the running food, water, and electricity might be true, but the people aren't necessarily people. They're all mannequins.
Mm-hmm.
So we find out that all the people of Kittytown are kind of gone, and it's just Bernadette's character Charlotte,
Yep.
and she's alone talking to mannequins because
Yes.
that's where the world's come to, and it has a nice little callback because the mannequins are all the names of the people who Sam ate.
Yeah, the driver's licenses. That they
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Like Mackenzie's there and stuff like that, and Stu, and yeah, that's one of those things again where when we talk about creativity, that's something that ties it back together nicely,
Yes.
and it's not like it was for nothing. That it's double meaning, right? We talk about how they could have shown he was a cannibal by showing all his bodies, but instead they show the cool recipes and dead people's
Yes.
driver's license. That's great. And then it's not like that just never gets brought up again. They bring it back
Yes.
at the end to show us that, oh, the people that were there dead that they were potentially eating were actually the people who the mannequins are supposed to be
Yeah.
that were replaced after they died.
Yeah.
Which is interesting,
Yeah,
right?
it's really clever.
So now I have a question, which would be interesting for Charlotte's character. Say there was 5 of them at Kittytown, and one of them was like killed, and Sam ate them, right? Charlotte immediately replaced them with a mannequin,
Yeah.
or were the mannequins brought in after all of them were dead? Because that would be weird. Could you imagine? Like imagine like Gary died right now, and so I don't know why I chuckled when I said that. Like we just like put a mannequin in the booth.
Yeah.
Like we'd be kind of weirded out. But like if you and Gary died and I put mannequins in, it would still be weird. But would it be as weird?
I don't know. I just found that part of it a little bit odd with her character because she is aware that they're dead, so it's like she's consciously choosing to treat these mannequins as
Yeah.
people. It was very weird, and I didn't quite understand it, like what the intent was there.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. That I feel like that was a slightly weak point, but
What I do want to talk about that though is a subversion of expectations because that's hilarious. The whole concept of them being mannequins had me so off guard. I think me in the theater, I was so invested in Kittytown and the prospect of finally like a safe haven
yeah,
that it's a common trope in a lot of these kind of apocalypse movies where there is a place like where everything is going good, like Alcatraz in the Book of Eli. Is that the Book of the Book of Eli? That's the one with Book of Eli, right? Having that as like a library research place where things are going better and stuff, and it's played up, right? And then I think it's what we expect almost, right? We know that there's going to be some sort of safety net on the other end, and there isn't, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was a hilarious plot twist where I'm thinking like, okay, there's gonna be people here at Kittytown and it's gonna be crazy, and now we're gonna open up a new set of challenges where Vern is kind of having to trust people now and stuff and be part of a team. But no, it wasn't that. It was fully just nothing.
Yeah.
It was all mannequins and a crazy lady, and none of it was what they expected at all. And so obviously Vern is kicked out of Kittytown because he can't handle the fact that this crazy lady is just
yeah, because he kind of goes
in
off
love
on
with
her. and-
mannequins, right? And
Yeah.
so I don't know, I thought it was hilarious because I was completely expecting just to have this Kittytown and stuff, and he says like, you lied to us about Kittytown, and yeah, I guess she did lie because she didn't say they were mannequins, but I guess they don't really show running generators or water, but
No.
I guess it's kind of implied that she didn't lie about that stuff,
Yeah.
and that in her mind that the people were just mannequins, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, very strange. And then obviously we bring up the thought of characters who have survived this long, right? It's obvious that Sam survived this long because he's been eating other people and stuff, and doing a little bit of trickery. Everyone has a bit of Sam in them, as Vern says. Does the worst thing. We talk about how does Ted survive when he's like the way he is, trusting everyone? how does Charlotte survive when
Yeah.
she's surrounded by mannequins?
Well,
who
I
she
think
thinks
I
is
mean they
real,
all
right?
take different paths, right? Like Sam goes the cannibal road, and Ted and Charlotte both kind of went the just find somewhere with supplies and take it over, which is similar to Sam but a little bit different.
Sure.
Whereas Vern was just like, no, I'm maintaining my independence, but I'm still gonna go loot these places, right? And it makes sense with their characters because Ted's very like trusting and open, right? So he's just gonna go find, he finds this place with a bunch of food. Oh, I'm gonna stay here. This is awesome. This is great. But Vern's like, I don't like this. People might come back. I'm taking the food and going.
Yeah.
So
No, and that's fair enough. I think like oh man, I just completely lost my train of thought. But it makes sense too that they have different kind of abilities or strengths that maybe kind of play to how they survived, right?
mhm.
You a lot of times you think in these apocalypse movies that it's the strongest people, the ones who have plans and stuff like that. And I think like Zombieland is a great example. Double Tap specifically, where they meet the girl in the freezer. Like, how the heck have you survived this long in a mall freezer, right? After getting locked inside, right? And but she's survived in other ways and stuff, and kind of looted. And I think it's a common thing in these survivor-esque apocalypse movies where, yeah, people, maybe it's luck, maybe it's fate, but there's different avenues you can take, right? And you don't have to be the psycho killer.
Yeah.
You can be like a squirrel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's finish up the plot here. So they make it to Kittytown, meet Charlotte. They're all mannequins. Vern leaves, has another attack of. He says it's not sludge butt, but like, I think it is.
It's pretty close to sludge.
It's pretty close.
He's getting sick.
Yeah, he's getting pretty sick. And then he sees Sam coming back, and tries to intervene. He knows that he's heading to Kittytown.
Yeah.
So he tries to intervene and gets knocked out or stabbed. I think it is.
Yeah, I want to say stabbed or something like that.
They show that later. And then Sam drags him to Kittytown, confronts Ted and Charlotte. They're like tied up or whatever. Ted is able to break free, tries to go after Sam. Sam punches him. That's a great scene. It's like, oh, he's gonna make it, and then just, Sam just gets him. And then Vern is able to strangle him, and that's his, final heroic act. And then he dies, and they bury him, and they bury Sam again.
Yeah.
Which is great because it cuts between him smashing Sam's grave and then saying prayers over Vern's grave. It's great. It just cuts back and forth, and they keep heading back and forth. But yeah, that's kind of the ending of it. I just figured he'd finish the plot off there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I spoke with Darren about maybe what his favorite moment on set in shooting this movie would have been, and he said it was near the end there, where he kind of brings down Todd, the massive dude, and he gets crushed by him, and he's underneath him, and so he had this nice story about how he was getting crushed by Todd. He's such a big guy, and then afterwards they were done shooting. Todd gets up and he's like, "Are you okay, man?" and whatnot. And yeah, it's just kind of sweet and wholesome. And yeah, I don't know. He said that was kind of one of his favorite parts. And Todd said he had a lot of fun crushing Darren. So yeah. So also, how he was like making recipes out of the name?
Yeah.
I thought it would be hilarious. I was thinking about this in the theater. I almost said it out loud. That's how funny I thought it was. Imagine he was called Vern's Pizza.
Oh God!
Could you imagine?
That
how
would be
hilarious
great.
That
would have been
great.
great.
Oh man, I just
get a
that
Vern's endorsement.
Yeah, that would have been funny.
Oh, there's one Vern's now because the other one just closed in town here.
Oh, I'm not.
They got busted for franchise infringement or something.
Oh, yikes!
Not good. Anyway.
Yeah. So that was funny. I thought.
Yeah, that's very clever
in the theater.
Yeah.
I should say quickly, thank you to the Roxy Theater for having us yesterday. It was incredible, great, fantastic turnout, and I wanted to say,
yeah, it was packed. Like, it was packed. Like, it was great to see because I wasn't expecting that many people, and then people came out and they packed the theater, and it was great.
Yeah, I do want to say just a massive thank you to the cast and crew of Kittytown who we got to speak with yesterday. You know, among them Jeff, Nathan, Damien, Doug, Darren, Bryn, Todd. Like all of you guys
Yeah.
were so incredible to us. It meant a lot to get to chat with you guys, interview you guys. Yeah, it was a fantastic experience. We can't thank you guys enough for how kind you were to us and how much it meant just for us to be there and get to film some of it and meet you guys because we've heard a ton about this movie for a long time.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot about it from Doug and yeah, I can't say better things about you guys and stress how awesome of an opportunity it was. So thank you so much. Meant a lot. And yeah, I guess let's continue. I'll be honest. I think maybe we talked about this in the Minions. I'm not a fan of fart jokes. You know, like they stopped being funny to me when I was 14. But I was laughing at fart jokes in the movie for the first time in probably like 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've typically found fart jokes funny.
Like-
I've found fart jokes funny my whole life. I've been making fart jokes my whole life, and so but yeah, no, I mean they were funny in this movie. They did them well.
Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe it's because like I had so much popcorn that my stomach was starting to feel like sludge. But the popcorn is just so good, man. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It was. I thought it was funny. You know, like when has a scene where he's going through the guy's tent. Vern's going through the guy's tent, and he's dead. He had sludge butt and stuff. And
Yeah.
So he's like moving him, and he's like farting and shit, and it's funny. I liked it.
Yeah.
I had a good time with it. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the time lapse shot towards the end of the movie when kind of Vern gets picked up kind of by Ted, and they go on a final little quest to go to Kittytown. I almost said Tittytown.
I'm going. I'm happy to go there. Oh, point me in the direction.
That's so creepy, man.
What's creepy about it?
It's creepy.
What's creepy about it? See, Gary will go with me. That makes it completely uncreepy.
Fine, I'll go too.
All right,
Whatever.
there we go.
I'm just being a bitch.
On our
man.
way, Kittytown. Let's go.
Whatever, man. I could use a glass of milk.
Maybe that's the sequel, Kittytown.
I quit, dude. I so quit.
You said it, not me.
The time lapse shot closer to the end when they're on like the final like escapade to Kittytown. I think that was done fantastically. Doug was talking to me about that. I hadn't really seen it yet. But he actually advised me to do something similar in my movie because he thought it would work kind of as a scene transition. So I did, and it did work for me, and it actually bridged a gap for me in my last film that's gonna be playing at the Roxy next month. And yeah, so I think that's cool, and it was so beautiful, right? We kind of come in a circle where Vern is starting to trust more of Ted, right? And they're kind of growing together, and I think Vern's maybe starting to realize that Ted isn't all that bad of a guy, and that maybe if he wasn't so hard, maybe he'd enjoy life a little bit more in some capacity, right? And so I think he starts to do that, and I think Vern and Ted do have a falling out closer to the end of the film where Ted's gonna stay in Kittytown with Charlotte.
Yeah.
And Vern's done. He's kind of had his share of the adventure, and then ultimately Vern does make the choice to kind of try and save their lives, and he sacrifices himself for Ted.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I think you could look at it as two ways. Maybe he knew he had sludge butt in some capacity, because when we kind of talked about that, he seemed to maybe have it in some capacity, and maybe he's coming towards the end, and maybe he's like, he wants to redeem himself, right? And he doesn't have much time left, and he would rather die heroically than shitting himself to death, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a nice moment for sure. I would say Vern's death is kind of a little rushed, maybe in a sense. They bring down Sam, and he kind of like sits on him and crushes him. I think maybe what would have been better, if had the time or whatever, if they can like show that Vern's bleeding out somewhere, maybe
Mm-hmm.
like he was stabbed as he fell or something. Not that he was like crushed from Ted or from Todd being on top of him, but or Sam, sorry. And then show that in some other capacity, like you know they could have rolled, they could have rolled Sam off of him maybe, and he would
Yeah.
have been fine. But yeah, if they could have showed that, like,
There was some blood splatters on the floor,
yeah,
which they showed, but yeah, and who knows? Again, this could be a budget thing. Like we always have to remember that budget of what 35 grand. Like they
Yeah,
shot
oh,
it
yeah.
on 15, right? So the actual
Yeah,
shooting part
around
on
there, yeah.
15. That's pretty limiting, really, when you think about it. So
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think it worked though. And obviously the dirt mounds are cool and stuff, and like the little
Mhm.
makeshift graves, and the driver's licenses are a nice touch.
Yeah.
I think that was cool. We can maybe talk about how this film came to be, because we were fortunate enough to kind of hear that from Doug, and I heard it last night from a few perspectives, from Bryn Mann and Darren. But Doug had always kind of wanted to write a film involving those two dudes.
Yep.
And apparently he thought about it for a couple of years. After work every day, he would kind of go home and sit in his hot tub and think about, how can I get these two gents in a movie together? And Ted and Vern had been, or Bryn and Darren
Yeah.
had been working on projects for quite some time, and they finally kind of like pulled the trigger and decided, like, hey, we're gonna get this stuff together and we're gonna make
Yeah.
it happen. And yeah, so they did have a lot of chemistry together too coming into this, and I think I think you can kind of see that shine through in some areas. And
for sure.
and they're hilarious together. They play
Yeah.
off of each other really well.
Yeah.
They have good timing, and I think Ted's so funny in this.
Yeah, he's
His
really,
character
really
is
well.
just awesome, right? And I think, yeah, I think you can tell there's some sort of chemistry. Obviously, they act like they have no chemistry, right? Like supposedly, like they just met each other, right? But yeah, I don't know. They play off really
Yeah.
nice. And,
Yeah.
I was happy about that.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I noticed, this is turning more to the VFX side of it. I didn't think when they do the dirt thing with their hand and it's green and whatnot,
Yeah.
I didn't quite like the way that was done. I could very much tell it was VFX. And like good VFX is, to me, the same the way it was with Sam after he was like resurrected or whatever, where I didn't know whether that was practical or visual.
Sure.
And I felt like they could have, the way I would have done that is like take like ground up sidewalk chalk or something and mix that in with the dirt to get a more practical color on it, because I felt like I could tell right away that was digital and it didn't look right. And so something like that I would have done differently. That was one of my, and it happened several times. So like, most of the VFX in this, it was done really well, and it was, what they did was done well. I just didn't quite like the look of it. Like I felt like it could have been more realistic in a way,
Sure.
you know?
It's actually funny you say that, because I didn't have a problem with those shots. I actually had a problem with at the start when he goes to that town and it's on fire.
Oh, the smoke?
I could tell the smoke was CG.
Oh, I could tell too. I could tell it for sure. But it felt done better because at least the smoke was more realistic, like fitting into the scene realistic.
Sure.
And doing smoke like that is so hard to do because you have to match the lighting, and then you like, especially with the trees sticking up above the town, to try and get it all behind the trees and key it all, or like get it all. Yeah, it's super difficult to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That was the one shot that I had more, the multiple shot that I had problems with was that green dirt stuff. But
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think we need to talk maybe about the Saskatchewan film community.
Yes.
Because
yeah,
I think that's kind of something that we need to share.
I mean, this film is a shining example of what you can do with local talent. Really, I mean, on all around, it's talent, not just the actors. It's director, music. Doug wrote all the music too. Like that's like that's amazing to me. Like
yeah, and truthfully, I think I think this highlights what, as a community, we can do and why we are so passionate about making movies. We have a lot of skill here, we have a lot of talent, and when we're given opportunities, we can really shine. And so I'm very proud with how this film turned out.
Yeah.
I'm very excited that we've brought in so many people, and we've learned and developed over the years like a proper cruise. And I think that really shows, especially on Kittytown, how good we can be when we work together on
Yeah.
stuff, and just how many people are willing to show up. And there's so many people there that I knew or met working on other projects and short films and stuff.
Yeah.
That wanted to be there to support, and I think that's so awesome. Roxy was packed.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
That's the best sentence I could have used to describe how full it was.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I think it's just so awesome. That
To me, it's also inspiring.
exactly.
Like, I mean, like, I've had an idea for a short film for, a couple years now that I've been, slowly writing away at. And it's like, seeing somebody do a feature film on that budget, it's like, I could do it. I could make this work it's a short film. I could do it on a much smaller budget. I could make it work. All I have to do is, find the people and pull the trigger, and so, it's inspiring. And I hope that other people who see this film or see this podcast and watch the film or whatever, like, they're like, if you have an idea, like don't just, oh, that's for, the big, stars and big budgets and everything. Like, look at it, look into it. And there's always some things that are out of reach, obviously, but it shows that it can be done.
If you write what you know and you're realistic with yourself, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I think this is a good example of when people are given an opportunity to show their skills and their creativity, it can just be so successful. And,
Yeah.
and honestly, I'm so proud of it. And seeing all the Saskatchewan filmmakers there and stuff, and all the people who are passionate about it too, I think it's even more inspiring, because not only are you watching it and you're like, oh man, I can do something like this, you're like, there's 100 other people in this very room who are thinking the exact same thing. So there's people out there who are
Yeah.
thinking exactly like you. So you're not the only one
Yeah.
who wants to do something. And
Yeah.
I think that's so awesome. And if you are a local filmmaker or someone who wants to get into the industry, and you want to talk about your passion for this and discuss movies and what you love, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yeah,
Leave a comment
absolutely.
below. Ask. We'll get you on here, and you can talk about your projects and what you've learned, and share with the community about what makes the film world here so successful, and how can we keep growing and become a larger industry like other
Yeah.
places in Canada, or how can we be the next Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Because that's something that we want to do. We
And I mean-
have so many passionate people here who want to become in that
Yeah.
realm and in that place. So
And I mean, Saskatchewan is so versatile. I mean, especially since we brought back the film credit recently, the last few years. Like, we have the people, we have the credit for it, like the financial incentives for it to bring in bigger projects, and we also have the landscape. That's the one thing about Saskatchewan. When you think, oh, the prairies are all flat, well, let's go up north. We have lakes, we have trees. Let's go south. We've got hills, like the Cypress area, the
Badlands, sand dunes.
Yeah, you got the sand dunes, you got the hills, you got the plains, and like that,
Drumhella.
Yeah, Drumhella. And I mean, like, like, look at, this one. This was a lot of flat, and they said they shot it in, I think, late October or somewhere around
Yes,
there.
late October.
Late October. So it's like, dead, and it worked perfectly for post-apocalyptic. It's flat, it's dead, a lot of, gray. But then there was a couple cut scenes there where it was like super lush green grass and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And like, like I said, you go up north, you got green trees, you got the lakes, you got sunsets, you got clear lakes. Like, we have everything you need in one province to make a film. You
Exactly.
can make pretty much anything here. I mean, I think down in Regina on those, like, on the sound stages, we've got, like, I think it's one of North America's largest LED green screens.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, we have everything you need to make a film here. Like,
Yeah, we have the people. We have the infrastructure. I guess we're building up the
we're
infrastructure.
building it up.
now.
Yeah. I mean, it's taken a while to recover after they took the film credit away, but it's coming back, and it's coming back stronger than ever.
Yeah, and I think, again, like we talked about last night, there's so many people there who want it to come back
Yeah.
and they want it so passionately. And I think a lot of people right now are in a stage where they might be waiting for that perfect opportunity and they just don't have
Yeah.
the necessary means to jump on it yet. And so when we have a strong community of people who are ready to create more opportunities like this, then I think there's a ton of people here who are willing to jump in and make it happen, right? And so again, if you're a filmmaker, reach out to us. We can get you on here. You can talk about it and
And we'd love to help you out with projects too. If you're looking for promotion or crew or writing or whatever you need, we know people as well, so we're happy to put you in touch or whatever.
yeah, so dufferinab.com.
Dufferinav.com. Yeah.
Figure out some stuff or leave a comment below. Let us know what you want to see next too. Let's talk about things you like and dislike in this. So.
I mean, I liked the whole film overall. Like I said, like it was, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like it was, and also I liked the length. Like we've talked about this before. I think with, 2-hour movies and movies just getting longer and longer. This is a perfect example of a 90-minute feature that hits all the points and is fun. Like I didn't feel like I was sitting there for a long time, when we were watching it. Like it didn't feel like 90 minutes. But when you watch a 2-hour movie, even if it's a great 2-hour movie, you still know you're there for 2 hours.
Yeah, there's a point
there's a
kind of in
point
the
where it's
middle
like-
where you're like, how long have I been sitting here?
Yeah.
And another 40 minutes
Yeah,
go by, right? Yeah.
And so I was thoroughly impressed. Like I think I've already hit most of my dislikes. There wasn't very many. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and truthfully, like, it is one of those things. Like, it has like maybe like some stuff that we consider flaws, but I think a lot of it also leads to other things, right? Like Sam's character coming back from the dead. That's something that we consider to maybe be like not
Ideal.
well, maybe like something that we weren't expecting, right? But it did give us a decent ending where Darren's character Vern sacrifices himself for Ted
Yeah.
and kills Sam. And yeah, like I think that can be explained personally by just saying like, oh yeah, like the miracle GMO kind of like got into his body and took him over, right? Like
Yeah.
stuff like that. I don't know. Like I think I was laughing the whole time. You know what I mean? When he pulls out
Yeah.
the dildo from the backpack.
Yeah, that was
The
hilarious.
audience was going crazy.
Yeah. That's just fucking.
I don't know. I had such a good time. The only thing I wish when I left the theater was like, I want to see a blooper reel.
Well,
I want to
we
see
were
a blooper
talking
reel.
to Darren afterwards.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, we're hoping to get it on DVD or Blu-ray and put a blooper reel in. And we're
Yeah,
like, yes,
that's
that's going to be awesome. That'll be great.
Yeah. You can tell when there's love. And I think we see a lot of movies that are a little bit more corporate
Yes.
in a way where they're for profit. They want to make a buck. They want to have a bunch of star power.
And a social message too. That's the other big thing. They
And
want a social message. And nowadays, and this film doesn't do that at all.
well, yeah, and it's just, yeah. This film, you can just kind of feel that there's so many people who wanted to work on it,
Yeah.
just because they love movies, not because they were looking at the next big Ryan Reynolds movie with grossing $700 million,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean. It's just there's passion, and
Yeah.
it's something where people can build their skills
Yeah.
and continue working and develop things and yeah, I don't know. It's just
Well, and it's a fun time. I mean,
it's full of
you
it.
can go out and, have a drink with your friends or whatever, and you don't accomplish much. Like maybe talk for a bit. But like, this is, you're going out, you're doing something with your friends, and you accomplish something, it because you're not making a lot of money on it, and so you have to want to be there, and the perfect example of it.
Yeah, and I think when you want to be somewhere doing something, it helps mounds. And I think in a sense of writing, for Jarrett and Robert Brindman, getting to work on your own characters too is an interesting thing, right? It kind of helps you maybe get more in tune with them and make changes that you want to see. And
Yeah.
and you know what? I think it works. Some people might say like, oh well, you should just play a character that's presented to you, but if you have a say in what your character does and how you envision them in your mind and it works and the other person has a similar idea for their character,
Yeah.
then why not, right? And
Yeah.
it worked. It worked for me. And
Well, also when you write your own character, essentially, I think you have a much better understanding of the character and what their motivations are and what their backstories, because you don't need to write it all down, right? Like when you know, uh, Glenn Powell gets the script for the next Top Gun movie, you know, he doesn't know what the writers were thinking for his character. You know what I mean? Like they need. Whereas when Bryn Mann or whatever writing Ted, he fully understands that character and he can embody it because he created the character, and so it
and in
feels
some ways, he is the
he
character.
is the character,
Yeah.
and so it feels more legit. Like it feels less like you're acting. He's acting, but it doesn't feel as much like he's acting.
Right. It's more genuine
Yeah.
in a sense, and it works for me, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes down to too, when you have such a low budget film, but it comes together and it works, and you make the audience leave the theater happy and potentially wanting
Yeah.
more, then you've won, right? Just getting it finished is a huge
Is a
accomplishment
huge
and
victory,
deserves
yeah.
a pat on the back. But to have such a great turnout and have so many people be so supportive of it,
Yeah.
and just getting to show your friends and families and even complete strangers that you made this, like, come on, like, it just
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful thing, and I think I think it all came together really nicely, and I'm very proud of the team and Doug, and I just can't
Yeah.
wait to see what's next.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a sequel. Maybe there isn't.
I
but
on
I'm
like I said,
excited to
I
see.
hope not. I think they should leave it where it is, but that's my opinion.
Well,
I
Doug
will
does
definitely
have
go
some
see it.
ideas for a sequel that we can talk to him about.
I definitely will go watch it if there is a sequel, for sure.
For sure. Out of 10, what would you give it?
Out of 10. I've been thinking about this one a little bit. I haven't had a lot of time to think about it, but I have been thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I have to consider the budget. I think that's exceedingly important to consider that they made this on a $35,000 budget.
And just to go to your point quickly, like, we don't usually talk about the budgets of a movie too much because
it doesn't really matter.
when we look at a movie that has a $50 million budget compared to $150 million, once they're already up at $50 million, obviously $100 million more is a ton of money. But again, it's not as drastic as a $35,000 movie.
it's not.
Right?
So considering all that, considering like the cinematography and just everything, I'm giving it an 8.
Yeah, that's awesome.
8. Yeah,
happy to
solid
say that.
8.
Nice. I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
Okay.
That's awesome. I think it was great. Damien Kent did a fantastic job as the cinematographer on this.
Yeah, it was amazing.
There's a lot of cool shots, and I think it does highlight a little bit of the Saskatchewan landscape too. Like you're saying,
Yeah.
we've got some cool shots of the river, cool homesteads and stuff. The Kittytown Saloon there.
Yeah, I was gonna.
awesome.
I was curious about like where that is and how they did it, and
Yeah, well, that's something that
yeah,
we
we
can,
gotta talk to Doug. Talk to Doug about that.
that we have already talked
have
about
talked
for
to-
wink
yes.
wink. Yeah, that's gonna age so well. And I think considering the budget, it worked. They did a fantastic job. They were so creative with the driver's license things that we talked about, and some of the VFX and stuff that it worked for me. That shot of the keyhole, I really love that.
That was
keyhole shot.
amazing. That was mint.
They do this like little shot through a keyhole that like gets lit up as like Sam's walking by with his
Mhm.
lantern. So
Oh,
awesome.
that was beautiful.
I really like that was beautiful. So I would give it 7.5. There was
Yeah.
solid performances. I think Charlotte's character is hilarious too. The
Yeah, she did a great
subversion
job.
of expectations there at the mannequins and stuff, and I think it really came together, and it's such a crazy concept, right? It's an idea that there's this like GMO that was supposed to make crops grow perfectly and do whatever, and
It worked
cure
too
the
well.
human race, and instead it actually just killed the human race. The humans fucked it up and then fucked it up more, and it's a crazy concept because you get sick and then you shit yourself to death, right? But it works, and it had
Yeah.
a good ending, and I left the theater with a smile on my face.
Oh, for sure. I
and
was enjoying myself.
and I think when people see it, they will too.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, I'm super excited to have had the opportunity to talk about
Yeah.
this. And again, one more huge, massive, big thanks to the cast and crew of Welcome to Kittytown.
Yes.
You guys absolutely rocked the house, and super excited to see where everyone goes
Yeah.
next.
We also have to business things. Patreon. Check us out. Patreon.com/Dufferin Avenue Media, I think is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just go on Patreon and search Dufferin Avenue Media Network or Dufferin Ave Media Network. And if you want to and you feel you can support us, it's a great way to do it, and it helps us a lot. And leave your suggestions for other movies or questions or whatever you want in the comments. We will definitely respond to that. Unlike Gary. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.
See ya.